"50 reviews. It's only been a couple months and I'm up to number 50. It's been a ride and a half and it's been a blast. Thank you guys so much for helping spread the word of Hibiki TMD. Now my reviews for the most part have gone all over the place. I've covered almost every genre in gaming, but for the 50th review I wanted to do something a little bit different. So in today's Hibiki Quickie number 50, we're going to check out a game that my brother and I, who's also the co-host of the Slam Pigs podcast you can catch right here on Hibiki TMD, Michael has joined me on this review. We're going to take a look at one of our favorite games growing up, one of the greatest wrestling games of all time, in the THQ series for the Nintendo 64. This is WCW nWo Revenge. But before we can truly dive into a Revenge review, let's go back in time a little bit to what I like to refer to as the dark ages for wrestling games. In my heyday as a kid, growing up I really only went to the Super Nintendo, the Sega, and the NES. Now as far as wrestling games on these consoles, man, did we get the short end of the stick. With such notorious stinkers as WrestleMania for the NES, WWF Royal Rumble, which surprisingly my brother and I also played a lot as a kid. We mainly trudged through the crappiness. We were just thankful to have a wrestling game that was licensed by the WWF and had so many guys from the roster. Ironically, in my opinion, the best wrestling game from the 16-bit generation was by far Saturday Night Slam Masters, and I say ironically because this wasn't a WWF or WCW licensed game. This was by Capcom, all fictitious characters. The playability was great. You can also find that review in one of my earlier videos. But then something happened in gaming. 3D came into effect. Now originally, this was seen on WCW vs. The World, where it was pretty much the same engine, just a little bit slower and not as refined. This was mind-blowing for me, as I obviously didn't live in Japan and didn't have games like the Fire Pro series or the Virtual Pro series. This was amazing. It was a real wrestling game, something my brother and I had longed for. In 1998, it was unleashed. WCW vs. nWo Revenge for the N64 blew my goddamn mind. One of the deepest wrestling experiences at the time. The roster was huge. Everyone was on this roster. The commentators, Hoovy, you name it. But don't take my word for it. For a special guest on my 50th game review, here's Mike from the Slam Pigs podcast, my cohort, my co-conspirator, my brother in arms, to tell you his experience with WCW Revenge.
Well, thank you, Travis. I'm glad to be here for episode 50 of your game reviews. And this is the first one I've been invited to. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. But a little off topic there. I'm going to get my little disgruntled moment out of the way. What can you say about this game? WCW nWo Revenge. Man, we had some battles in this game. I remember sitting for hours playing this game and just going back and forth, back and forth. This was the first game I can remember where you had so many more options. You could fight inside, outside, weapons, and you couldn't have a match without a run-in. Any match that lasted longer than 5 minutes, somebody was running down to the ring and beating you up. But that's what made the game cool. It was different. This was also one of the first games I remember having realistic background sets. You had the Nitro set, you had all the pay-per-view sets, anything you could think of. The battle royals were a little long. You can only have 4 people in the ring in a battle royal, but you could have up to like 60 people. It was crazy. But thank you for having me on episode 50 of your game reviews. I know this was definitely a classic for us. This was definitely a game that caused a little bit of conflict between you and I. But once again, thanks for having me. It was great to be on for episode 50.
Now, as Mike stated, he was spot on about a few things. There are way too many run-ins in this game. Literally, like every match, someone comes down and tries to spoil the fun. But Revenge really has way too much good going for it to focus on the few negatives that there are. Like Michael also said, the backdrops at the time was awesome. Developers Asmik and Aki really nailed the Starcade sets, the Halloween Havocs, all the above. It all looks authentic and feels like you're watching WCW on television. Revenge also kind of featured a creator wrestler option, but it wasn't too in-depth. You could really only give them other wrestlers' clothes and change the colors. For what it's worth, Warzone and Attitude had much better creator wrestler options at the time, but that's about it. Let's dive into the meat and potatoes, though, of what makes Revenge, personally for me, my favorite all-time wrestling game. The roster. Look at this roster. It's stacked. You have nWo Hollywood, Wolfpack, Jericho, all the cruiserweights, Larry Zbyszko. Everyone made the cut. Even there's some fictional wrestlers who resemble other Japanese wrestlers at the time, like Hayabusa. So whether you want to snap necks like a Slim Jim, a la Macho Man Randy Savage, or just dance your way through the night like Alex Wright, the diverse roster definitely has something for everyone. Another aspect of the game, the gameplay. At the time, the amazing gameplay in Revenge was revolutionary and upped the ante from WCW nWo World Tour. The A button does your grapple move. If you tap it, you'll do a light, fast grapple. Holding it will do your strong grapple. Up, down, left, or right directions with the grapple, do different moves. It's pretty simple and easy to pick up. Performing special moves in a wrestling game has never been easier. In my opinion, this is the easiest game to pull off wrestling moves, and it's very satisfying. All you have to do when you build your special up at your life bar is merely flip the joystick once, and he does your special. Surprisingly, with the polygon graphics, the game has aged well, so don't let the graphics hold you back from having a blast. Get a friend, go against the computer, it doesn't matter. You're gonna love WCW nWo Revenge for the N64. So there you have it. Hibiki QUICKIE number 50 is in the books. 50 reviews. When I first started doing reviews, it was merely just something to kill time. I never thought it would come this far, but I personally want to thank each and every one of you guys on Hibiki TMD Twitter, the Facebook group, all over YouTube. Thank you guys so much for the support. It means the world. Stay tuned for Hibiki QUICKIE next time, where we're going to take a look at the SNES. Hey guys, you can follow me on Twitter at the Hibiki TMD. Check out the Hibiki TMD Facebook group for everything retro gaming, pro wrestling podcasts, and everything in between. Thanks for watching another video, and thanks for stopping by on Hibiki TMD.
Hey, what is going on here?